Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another edition of All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I am Vince Mickens with the Private Air Media Group. You know, one of the best things I can accomplish with this show is when I showcase an aspect of aviation that most outside of the industry and even many who are in the industry may not be totally familiar with. This is one of those shows. It will also hone in on one of my favorite areas of the industry, business aviation. One of the significant aspects of business aviation is on-demand private air chartering. It's a huge part of the industry. It's grown significantly, in part due to the pandemic, but also, I believe, because businesses have discovered and continue to discover the various efficiencies like saving lots of time, making trips more productive, security, privacy, safety. I could go on and on. It's really a great industry, and we don't hear as much about it as we probably should, but that's another show. Let me go ahead and get started with things and introduce our guests and give you an idea of what we're going to talk about. Before I introduce the guests, I did want to say that this industry, this aspect of the industry, it's unique because it combines what I would call technology with various kinds of customer service that are very important to streamline what it takes to book a charter or to find a charter on an on-demand basis as efficiently and as quickly as possible and as reliably as possible is probably the way I would put that. So we're going to talk about that and talk about the different areas that the Avinode Group specializes in. We'll talk about how they started, because the concept came about 21 years ago, and they're celebrating 20 years now since the launch of Avinode and the Avinode Group, and it's pretty impressive, as you'll see. So I think it'll be very interesting. You know, I think a lot of times we always tend to think of everything that's obvious about aviation, like being a pilot or being a mechanic or some of the other things. And you hear me say this a lot, but there are so many other areas, so many other facets of the industry that should also be taken in consideration, especially for those of you who are either currently studying something in aviation at an aviation-centric university, or you've just graduated and you're trying to figure out what you want to do next. This may give you some ideas as an example of what the possibilities are. So without further ado, I want to introduce a couple of people that are with Avinode. One who I've known for a number of years, a colleague, we're good friends, and even though with the pandemic we haven't seen each other in a while, but it is my pleasure to introduce the Director of Customer Success worldwide for the Avinode Group, Saskia Jong. Saskia, welcome to the show. Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I'm glad that you'll be able to tell us a lot about what Avinode is and does and all of that. So plus we'll hear a little bit about your background and looking forward to it. So glad you could join us. Also with us is Genesis. How did I go to Jennifer? Genesis. Sorry, Genesis.
Don't worry, it happens all the time.
Dela Cruz. It shouldn't happen with me. I've been calling you Genesis since I met you.
I know, it's okay. It
Jennifer. That's okay. I like to add a little variety in the show. Genesis De La Cruz is an account executive for Schedaero, and Schedaero is part of the Avinode marketplace. It's one of the premier products of it. And she's going to tell us all about what she does and what that's about, and her background as well, which you'll find pretty interesting now that she's working in aviation and has been for a bit. So ladies, glad to have you on board and looking forward to having this conversation.
Great.
So why don't we start out, and as I mentioned before, you guys do something that's really great. You have basically a technology company that really provides services for business aviation specific to chartering aircraft that just really streamline the process and make it very easy for somebody to do. And so the background for you guys is kind of, unique and different for working in the aviation industry. And I got to say, so I'm looking forward to in a couple of weeks, the National Business Aviation Association, better known as NBAA, is having their annual convention. It is the biggest aviation convention in the United States and one of the biggest in the world, with everything you can imagine about it. And it's always great to see you guys there because you guys kind of light the place up. Green, I'll say, since that's the company color, right? But with what you do and everything like that. But Saskia, how about starting out and just giving us an overview of how three very smart guys that were graduate students came up with a thesis that then became Avinode, and now Avinode is what it is today.
Yes. So I have to say, to start with, you mentioned like we kind of stand out, and I would say we've kind of been standing out for 20 years. We're kind of the odd birds in the industry, if you will. The young aviation technology company. Now that we've been there for 20 years, a lot of companies have adopted to technology. But 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, when I joined the company, that was not the case. So I think people have changed. New young people have entered this space, and people have actually come to Avinode to really realize that technology is important in this industry as well. But it all started off 20 years ago with our three founders. They're Swedish, Per, Nicholas, and Nicholas. And like you said, they were grad students and they worked on this project as part of their thesis. They realized that it wasn't easy to find aircraft in Europe at that time. So they started driving around in Europe and they realized that there was a need to have a marketplace that would allow people to find available aircraft. And it was wildly successful. I mean, there was nothing like this, especially not in Europe. And the market matured with Avinode. So there were only a handful of brokers at that time in the early 2000s. And since then, we've added a lot of broker companies just because they saw the opportunity once Avinode launched its marketplace. So just to take a step back, what is the marketplace? You already brought it up. It's our sourcing tool. I think we have a lot of young people listening in. People refer to it as the Tinder for tails. So we are matching aircraft with someone who's looking for an aircraft, and we're strictly business to business. So we allow operators to market their available aircraft, and then brokers or buyers, professional buyers, to find those aircraft. Started in Europe, but made our way to the US in 2006-07, I would say. We've acquired a competitor since then, and here we are 20 years later, and I would say we are as strong in the US as we are in Europe when it comes to the market share.
Sure.
And since then, we've also added a lot of new products.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you before we kind of get into the weeds with that, could you break down the different types of staff that you have working there at Avinode that make all of this come together and work so well?
Yes, absolutely. So you already brought up like Schedaero is part of one of our products that we have. So there's different departments. We have a sales team, which Genesis can talk a little bit more about. And she's part of that sales team. The people that sell our products, we have customer success managers, which is I'm the director of customer success management. And that's a newer role for a lot of people. We really want to make sure that people, once they buy our products, that they continue to see the value. So spending time with them, making sure that they use all of our systems in the right way. We have a support team. Those are really the customer facing roles. And then there's obviously a lot of things that happen on the back end. So we have a product team who's constantly working with feedback from our customers, working on improvements and new ideas to execute. And then we have our tech team. So we have a pretty large tech team to execute. And then HR, finance, and all of the others. There's probably teams that I'm forgetting right now. So if I have colleagues listening in, I apologize if I forgot you.
No problem. Well, one team we can't forget, and that would be Schedaero. So, Genesis, how about you tell us a little bit about what you do? What is Schedaero, and what do you do with it?
Yes, of course. Schedaero is part of Avinode Group, but it is our flight operations management software. So we're the part that actually helps the operators to be in tune with their operation, not only from creating a quote or even answering an Avinode request from the marketplace, but scheduling the trip, adding the logistics that goes to the trip, and the information of who will be the pilot assigned onto that trip. We also have the flight operations side where the pilot can keep track of, the VO or chief pilot can keep track of pilots' training and currency items, their duty log, flight log, and any information that pertains for an operator to keep record of. And also in our team on the Schedaero side, we do have our director of customer success as well on the Schedaero team, Kevin. We have our head of acquisitions, who's my manager, and he runs the acquisitions team. We have a senior account executive, I myself, account executive, and our customer success managers. And with that, a onboarding specialist team as well.
Yeah, and then you have and then you can break it down even further, because I was looking at it and it's like, geez, that you can really get into some detail with all of that you guys do and that you advise customers on, et cetera, and so forth. Genesis, your background is pretty interesting because aviation wasn't part of it when you were going to school. So why don't you take us back a little bit and tell us about how what you did ended up leading to where you are now?
No, of course. So a little background on myself for all of these college students and also those who are in high school who are listening to us today. I at first wanted to be into politics. So I did my bachelor's degree in political science and government and also in international studies. I did an internship in Washington, D.C. for a nonprofit. And while my time there, I figured that I did not feel as passionate as I was before when I first started out thinking about being in politics. And
so
after
you're not
I
a glutton
graduated,
for punishment.
no. No. And right after college, I think that a lot of others might feel the same way as well. I thought, I did major in political science, so maybe I would be great as being a lawyer. So I even was prepping to take the LSAT, worked for a couple who were lawyers out in West Hollywood, and also saw, that is not actually the great fit for me. And along the way, I came across a job posting with Jet Center Los Angeles, which is an FBO out of LA. And that's where I had my first opportunity to join as a customer service rep and got the first taste of business aviation. And from there, I learned a little bit more about business aviation. Really, my mentors there as well. I was telling you, Vincent and Saskia, a little bit about it. They also made me take ground school a month into the job. And I really liked it. Yeah. And from there, I got the thrill. I loved being in part of the charter sales world at Advanced Air. And then I had the great opportunity to be now with Avinode Group on the Schedaero side. So I have been in different roles and different facets of business aviation, and just want to tell all these college students listening out there that, you can always go ahead and swerve and pivot from what you graduated and also take into those opportunities that are offered to you. And there's a lot out there in business aviation. It's not only which a lot of people might think maybe dispatch, charter sales, and pilots, but we also have this other side of business aviation when it comes to technology.
Yeah, I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask you anyhow. What really attracted you with business aviation and aviation in general once you had that first job in customer service in aviation? What was it that just really drew you in?
I think what I really loved was the thrill of it, like I said, and just also how you work as a team collaboratively, right? If one of the colleagues, maybe, they were busy, they need help, you're able to go ahead and jump in. And I think I kind of liked that I also was wearing multiple hats, not only from a scheduling or charter sales side, but I could also help on the flight operations side as well. But like I said, I think that's why it's really great to be part of business aviation, because there's so many roles within this industry that you can go ahead and tackle. And really, if you are passionate about it, to go ahead and be successful in it.
Yeah. So, and what you do with Schedaero for Avinode kind of fits everything you just said, because no day is the same, right?
No day is the same. No DO is the same. Chief pilot, target sales manager, director of sales, or scheduler. And I think it helps me as well that I have been through these scenarios where you have a last minute passenger who has added to an international trip. So all of those scenarios where also you have an aircraft on ground, or maybe your ops team is not available and you got to figure it out on your own. So I think that has really helped me as well, and has best positioned myself to be able to speak with all our members who are interested in Schedaero and also continuing to use Schedaero, and also Avinode. I would say how I heard about Avinode Group is Schedaero. I was a user of it as well. And Avinode, I've really built relationships with brokers from other side of the world, and today are still my friends. So I think that that is also a great opportunity to have.
Sure. Saskia, take us through, you have a member customer who calls this morning and says, I need to do a trip for such and such. Take us through the process. What happens? When does that, where does that go? And when does it get to Schedaero? And just take us through the process, if you would.
Sure. And we love those calls. People that want to call us because they need help with either starting their business, or maybe they are an existing business that is reviewing the tools that they're using. So I would say we'd like to have a better understanding about who they are. I mean, we get several companies that might call us and it might not be always a good fit. I mean, we only serve professional companies. So we sometimes get individuals that might want to fly from A to B, and they want to have a membership because they've heard that we are the platform to be. We do not provide that to them. So let's say in this case, it would be an operator that might have just gotten a new certificate. I would say we, if it's Genesis or if it's one of my team members that gets that phone call, we would like to know the details, like how many aircraft did they have, how many pilots, what type of operation are we talking about? On the Avinode side, we need the operator in the US to have a 135 certificate. On the Schedaero side, we are also very well suited to help corporate flight departments manage aircraft. So we're not limited to that. We're really understanding what type of business we're dealing with. And then we want to make sure that we lay out, that they understand what offer we have, but again, what are their pain points? What are they looking to solve? So having that consultative approach is really something that our team is focused on. So asking a lot of questions before we dive into offering the solutions. I don't know if that answered some of your questions.
Yeah, it does. It actually does very well. So people find, you guys are actually, as you said before, business to business. So your focus is on the operators, the brokers, and really connecting everybody so that then you can facilitate their need. Which is where Schedaero, as an example, comes in. Another aspect of what you guys do, also, we had talked about it, is Paynode, and I thought that was kind of neat, because I think the opportunity for people to consolidate everything and know that Avinode's got it covered. It's like, okay, you connected me with the right situation, and then you're helping me execute that, including making the payment aspect of it easier. So can you tell us how Paynode came into the picture and what that's about?
Absolutely. So yeah, we're very passionate about the overall journey, the trip journey. So from the moment that maybe an end client reaches out to a broker or an operator, we have the tools to facilitate that journey to the moment of finding an aircraft, quoting an aircraft, making sure that you can schedule that you have a tool in place that can make sure that you can keep track of your pilot hours, flight logging, et cetera. And then the next step of that is making sure that you can transact and get paid on that trip. So that was one of the steps that we were missing a couple of years ago. And from talking to our customers, we understood that there is a pain point in the industry payments. I mean, everyone gets paid, otherwise companies would no longer be in business. But there's a lot of pain points that we could solve. So we launched Paynode a couple of years ago. We have since then really grown in the product offering. It's a tool that allows operators to instantly pay each other if they're in the Paynode network. So if someone is in Europe and they want to pay someone in the US, they are no longer bound by banking hours. And it's something that was really a restriction. Just imagine that charter flights happen all the time and things need to be flown on Saturday and Sunday. And then how does that payment happen? And typically a payment would happen prior to the flight because you want to make sure you get paid prior to takeoff. So Paynode can really facilitate that and help that with one click of a button that payment can now be sent over across the globe. So that's a pretty cool feature we're very proud of.
Yeah, I was looking at my notes and Genesis, going back to you, you have a lot of responsibility in Schedaero. That's a lot to take on in terms of coordinating everything and making sure things flow well. But I was really fascinated. I went to you guys' academy page, so to speak, and well, actually, that's exactly what it's called, the Schedaero Academy. And I was looking at it, and I know all of these things, but I thought, wow, that's a lot of things that you guys deal with, but also that you and Saskia, you may want to chime in on this too, hear it from both of you about how important it is for customer knowledge, for your customers, your members to know and to be helped by Avinode in terms of what they do, how they do it, and things like that, which then makes probably the flow. I don't know if I'm articulating this well, but I think you know where I'm getting at.
Yes, of course. Academy for Avinode Group is our knowledge-based place where our customers can go ahead and take a look at how our integrations work, and if they have any questions as well of how to use the marketplace, Schedaero, or Paynode. So we have all that information there. And these articles are actually created by our customer success managers, onboarding specialists, and product teams. So they all work in hand because we do want to make sure that these articles are really important and do answer the questions for our members. Yeah, in Schedaero, there is a lot. So as well as Avinode and Paynode, I think this is where you or our members themselves will be able to find the answers to the product and also our integrations that we have today.
Yeah, I was looking at it. So just as an example, you have you have overviews regarding training, administrative, operations, and then you get into the weeds with things like quoting, creating and scheduling a trip, and I could go. There's like a ton of things here.
Yep.
Aircraft pricing profiles, about adding a pilot, about duty rest, which is really important. Crew scheduling, and this you really cover. You even get into the aircraft maintenance side in terms of certain requirements for that, weight and balance, et cetera, and so forth. Either one of you want to expand on that a little bit? Expand on what I expanded on?
Well, I think Genesis can talk a little bit more about the type of articles that we write. But I think in general for us, we want the customer to be successful when they join. And that's part of that customer journey that I touched on earlier. Once they sign up, they go through an onboarding team that trains them on the system. So we want to, again, understand why they're joining, what is their intent, making sure that we touch on those areas during training sessions. And then once they have hit maybe their first win, we set them free, but we're still here for them. We have articles that they can constantly refer back to. So we're here, we have a support team, but at the same time, we want to make sure that people have access to knowledge articles so that they can go on their own. And when it's maybe an off hour, when we're not available for support, that they have the knowledge to do it themselves. And I would say there's plenty of people that prefer to just figure things out themselves with our articles. And that's where the Academy page comes from.
Sure. Genesis, you want to add on to that?
Yes. I just, for the Academy articles, just like Saskia said, it is really helpful for our members, and they do go through a tailored onboarding, especially on the Schedaero side. We do customize it on how the operator does their flight operations, and we tailor on how we want to do the training. But I just think that it is also important for our members that once they log into whether it's Avinode, Paynode, or Schedaero, they will have the option to either go to Academy straight or even use our chat functionality and look up an article or even pose a question. So like you said, it could even be for the pilots. We do have a crew app for Schedaero, and from the crew app, the pilots are able to look for support and even go ahead and look for articles in Academy. So maybe how do I flight log from the crew app? We do have articles on it. We also have videos on it that our customer success management team has worked with and are amazing and has, I think, made the pilot's life easier and to love us more on the Schedaero side. But yeah, pretty much anything that we have in the system is part of our Academy articles.
Sure. You know, you guys, one of the reputations of Avinode is you guys have a lot of fun. Your culture in the company is one that's pretty loose and, you know, fun and just a kind of a fun place that comes down from the top with the founders and everything. And so keeping that in mind and knowing that you guys have that, what do you look for in terms of bringing new people on board when you have positions open for opportunities?
We're looking for someone with, I mean, there's a bunch of things we're looking for, but overall energy and having a can-do attitude. I would say we're definitely a group of people where no day is the same. Not everything is black and white. We really enjoy having noders, as we call ourselves, that are not afraid to maybe roll up their sleeves when needed and jump in. And I think that that's something that would describe a noder, being able to roll up your sleeve and do it with a smile. I think that's at least someone that I am always looking for. I don't know, Genesis, from your experience, what would you add?
I would definitely say yes, the can-do attitude. Also, teamwork, being able to work on projects or even be available to help a colleague. I think that even right now, the team we have in place today, a lot of them have business aviation backgrounds. So they've been through a hell of different events, right, during the charter operator days. And I think that also helps as well with being part of the customer facing roles of Avinode Group. And yes, we do have a great company culture. And I think that also a respectful being towards each other also helps us be successful. So I think that is definitely some of the values that we look into for new noders joining Avinode Group.
Yeah, one of the exciting things about business aviation overall is something that you touched on earlier, Genesis, and that's that you from day to day, you just don't know what is going to take place. It's because, you know, executives, they make a decision, they want to go have a meeting, or something comes up that there's an opportunity, or there's an emergency and something needs to be situated, facilitated, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, okay, tomorrow morning we got to leave and we got to go wherever, and it could be anywhere in the world. And speaking of that, I want to emphasize that you guys are a global company. So your emphasis is on handling charter requirements around the world. It can be a short hop here in the United States, but it could also be a pop over to Europe or wherever. Can you guys expand on that a bit?
Yeah, and just to make sure I'm answering the question correct, are you talking about the ability of like serving a global audience? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your ability to do that.
So we have currently 130-ish noders, I think, and the majority of the noders sit in Sweden. That's where the company was founded. We have a large tech team there. We have the ability to really serve that side of the world with that team. They're responsible for the EMEA markets. And then we have a set of remote noders in the US. And initially we had an office in Miami. After the pandemic, during the pandemic, we decided to close our office, and we had the ability to start hiring talent everywhere. So we now have noders in Miami, but also in California, Colorado, Connecticut,
Oregon.
you name it, Oregon. There you go. And that is the other office. So that is a nice segue into our tech team. So we still have a remote tech team in the US, where the majority of them still sits in Portland, Oregon. And that is another tech team that will allow us to give us kind of 24/7 support. That tech team is really focused on Schedaero. But that means if there are any technical issues and they happen maybe in the US evening, they are able to solve those issues. And then by the time that they go to bed, the European team comes and wakes up. So we really have kind of 24/7 support, both on the technical side and also on the commercial side.
So one thing we know about aviation will draw you in and then it'll keep you. And Saskia, you're a great example of that, as well as Genesis, in the sense that you don't come from an aviation background. Tell us a little bit about that and your path to Avinode.
Yeah, sure. I have a hospitality background. So I did hotel management school in Europe. So I'm originally from the Netherlands, if I had not given that away with my slight accent there. I came to the US about 15, 16 years ago, did an internship at the Ritz-Carlton. So I knew I was passionate about customer experience and customer service. I was not super fond about the hours that I had to put in for that, the weekends and the holidays, especially once I started to settle down more. So I worked my way through what I really wanted to do. I got an opportunity to work for a wholesale tour operator. And then randomly a recruiter reached out to me about this Swedish company who was looking to hire a salesperson.
And that was over a decade ago, right?
That was over, almost 11 years ago. I'm pretty sure it's 11 days, probably exactly. But anyhow, it was interesting because it was in the travel industry. It had to do with high net worth individuals, which I was passionate about, being experienced with working at a 5-star hotels. And then customer service. So that spoke to me. And that's really how I started at Avinode. So I got hired, started off as at that time, regional sales manager, got promoted to handle the key accounts in the US. I've been then promoted to director of sales. And we have then made some changes, as I talked about the customer success piece, or we really want to focus more on the customer success. I'm director of customer success now, and I do that globally. So I oversee both the Americas team and the EMEA team.
And I love the term customer success. It just has a nice ring to it. And it has, to me, more meaning. I mean, customer service is something that we all talk about. Anybody that has anything to do with any kind of business providing a service or product, then we talk about customer service. But customer success takes it to another level. Tell us your philosophy with that and how you implement that within Avinode.
Yeah, and I'm pretty passionate about it myself. I think there's a lot of colleagues in our team that are as well, and that have gotten everyone excited about it. To me, customer success is really understanding what the customer is looking to get out of it. And it starts from the beginning when someone is interested in our product. I brought it up in the beginning. I really understand what the value is that they're looking to get out of it, because not every customer is the same. Someone might join us for different reasons, but understanding what the value is that they look to get out of it will allow us to better serve them from the moment of onboarding and training them, but then also keeping them as a customer. So we know that there's other options out there, especially with products in the fleet management software space where Schedaero is in. So we want to make sure that we understand what they like to get out of it. And I'm making sure that we constantly go back to that and understand what if their needs have changed. And I'm making sure that they take advantage of all that we have to offer. The biggest example that we have is the payment platform, Paynode, that we talked about. Like, that's a system that is available for all of our members to use. It's free of charge. Let's make sure that our customers are aware of the functionality that we have and that they know how to use it. And that to me is customer success.
Sure. I was going to say too that one of the things that you guys have is you have a lot of people that are members. You have a lot of members that aren't aware of all the services and products that you guys provide. We were talking about that, and so you mentioned one of your goals is to continue to let your customers, as part of the customer success program, to let them know, hey, there's other things that we can do for you that you may not be aware of. Because like most companies, if somebody's busy with something and it works really well for them, they may not think about, oh, that company can do other things. That being said,
Yes.
I was gonna ask Genesis, in terms of the customer success that Saskia was just talking about, how about you on your side with Schedaero? How does that apply for you?
Yeah, for us, and specifically on the acquisitions team side of things, when we have a new operator who's interested in Schedaero, we want to learn how they operate first. We want to know, just like Saskia said, right, what is the value they're looking to get out of our scheduling software, but also that they are committed, if they are doing a change to join Schedaero, that they will use our software. And also, hey, if they're already on Avinode, what's the best practices of using Schedaero and having Avinode integrated, or also Paynode? I think that it is really important also in my role to learn about the operator, see how they operate. Also, what is their business model? Because we do have operators who are 135 and also manage aircraft, or do jet cards, or do shuttle services. So it is important for me to learn about them. And also if there's anything that our product should be adding. So we do also receive feedback from them, and we take it back to our product team and how we can make our product valuable, but also how that we, in a sense, are making sure that all three products are intertwined and integrated and give the best experience in ensuring that our operators have the best success using all three products. So customer success is really important on the Schedaero side as well. And just on Avinode and Paynode from the beginning of when they want to join.
Sure. So in less than 2 weeks, on the 18th, 19th, and 20th, as I mentioned earlier, there's the big National Business Aviation Convention in Orlando. Always a great event, always a lot going on there. Tons of exhibitors, including you guys, and tons of attendees. Not to mention the static display out at the airport with all of the business aircraft that come in. You guys always have a big presence there, and always bring a program of letting people know more about the Avinode Group. So how about telling us a little bit about what your plans are there, what the layout's going to be, and expectations?
Sure. So yeah, will be our first year that we're bringing back our big booth. Last year in Vegas, we had our smaller booth because that was right after the pandemic. So we're excited to bring back our big presence. We'll have co-exhibitors in our booth. So we allow our members to exhibit with us. We have a big presence on the main aisle, and some of our members can join us. And what that really creates is kind of like a marketplace hub, especially if people want to meet each other. They end up going to our booth to meet. And I think that really is where there is a constant buzz in our booth. And that's great. So
that's an understatement.
Right. So we have a couple of fun events to keep the buzz going. We got a champagne mingle on Wednesday. So if you are around, I think it's at 5 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll do a champagne mingle. But we have some interesting note talks that we're hosting as well. So our noters, some of us are going to present on some interesting topics. I know Genesis is presenting one, so I'll let her chat a little bit more about that. But we'll have some topics about our pricing in our system, like how can operators make sure that they're offering in the Avinode system a price that is similar to what they would ask or quote in their regular quoting tool. We're not a booking engine, so our pricing is often not the exact price that that the operator quote back. So we're giving some tips and tricks for operators. And then another session that I think is very interesting is about the US demand and how to manage the demand in our system. Last year, we saw a record number of requests going through our system through peak, meaning December, January of 2021, 2022. So we want to make sure that our operators and brokers as well have tools to make sure that they can manage those requests. And that is something that we're passionate about. We'll present on what are some of the tips and tricks that come to that. Genesis, do you want to talk a little bit about the session that you're going to host?
Yeah, and also I'm super excited because it's the first time that I will be part of this big booth at NBAA. So really excited about that. I heard it's really nice. So I know, Vince, you've seen it.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. It's pretty neat. You're going to enjoy it.
I forget that this is the first time that you are going to be joining us at the big booth.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've heard of it. I mean, even when I used to work at an operator, about how amazing the big booth of Avinode Group is. So I'm super excited about that.
Is this your first time going to NBAA, Genesis?
No, my first one with Avinode Group was last year in Vegas, but it was much smaller. It wasn't the big.
Oh, so you haven't seen the big NBAA when it's back to normal?
I have not. So I'm really
welcome to Orlando, because I guarantee you that's what's going to be this time.
Yeah, a lot of current members are really excited to see it as well, and are reaching out to us to meet with their account managers or customer success managers there. But my no talk is specifically on Schedaero and our ability to have open APIs in our integration suite. So I'll be focusing more on letting members and also those who are interested in joining Schedaero, how they can flow their data from their Schedaero account to another software, whether it is an in-house ticketing system, accounting system, or even reporting system. So with Schedaero, we don't limit to where your information in your Schedaero account just lives there. We help you go ahead and take advantage of the open APIs and be able to use other systems. So that is part of my no talk. So whoever's listening that will be at NBAA, I will see you there.
Yeah, absolutely. While we're talking about NBAA, I also wanted to mention that on Thursday, it's basically Students' Day. They call it collegiate something, whatever. But it's if you're a student, whether you're in college, high school, or whatever, or even middle school, and if you're in middle school or high school, if you have an adult chaperone, it's free for you, the student, and it's free for the chaperone with you. So it's a great learning experience to go to a show like that. Yes, I'm trumpeting business aviation because it doesn't get trumpeted enough, but it really is. I mean, the exhibitors, it's somewhere, I wish I knew the number, but it's probably between 800 and 1,000 exhibitors, and then there's probably about 100 aircraft that will be on display at the airport. So it's really a neat show to go to and experience all of that. And then companies like Avinode, who really know how to step it up and then also teach you a few things regarding their products and services and industry, the industry related to charters, booking charters, et cetera, and so forth. It's a kind of we actually, for a student, it'd be a great way for you to learn more about it and see it in action and things like that. So totally, completely recommend that. As we kind of wrap things up, I just wanted to make sure that we've covered everything about the opportunities there. I know that there are some tech opportunities right now. I think most of them are in Sweden. I don't know. I didn't see anything for the United States. But when you guys, I guess I'm asking this, what are your priorities in terms of when you have positions open? What are those positions usually? And again, who are you looking for?
We continue to increase specifically on the commercial side. I would say we're not done growing yet. So I think our commercial team will continue to grow. That's sales positions or support roles. If we do have them available, the best place to keep an eye on is on our website. So it's avinodegroup.com. All of our positions are posted on there. We're pretty good also with posting them on LinkedIn. So I would highly recommend follow us on LinkedIn. We not only do job postings there, we also have interesting articles that we like to share. So I would suggest go ahead and take a look there. If you are interested, we're also never shy of receiving good resumes and cover letters. So, I mean, if you think you are the right person, even if we're not hiring right now, send us an email.
Get on your radar, right?
I know. We love to hear from talent. I mean, if we can get to know you early on, we might not have the position right now, but we like to keep you in our back pocket.
Yeah. Do you have an internship program?
We currently do not. I honestly don't know if that's something that we could be doing in the future, but I would say if there is interest for a right candidate, perhaps we could bring in our HR and further discuss. But for right now, we do not.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing is, if you're fresh out of college, do you have any entry level positions? That's one. And the other is, you mentioned in a conversation that you and I had that even if you have just a little bit of customer service experience at a FBO or working for a charter operator or whatever the case may be, that's kind of golden to you guys in terms of your interest in bringing those type of people on board.
Yeah, I think we have some entry level positions. We're building out our support team. So I think that would definitely be a position that could be interesting. Like I said, either out of college or ideally with maybe some experience in the charter industry, just because it helps with the training aspect. I mean, Genesis joined, she was familiar with our platforms. She had worked with them. So it was very easy for her to step in.
And now she's coming and taking over Schedaero.
Exactly. So no, it's not a must. We're happy to teach you. We have a pretty extensive noder onboarding program as well that we're very passionate about. But if you do have some knowledge about the industry and even our products, it's a nice to have.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that we've also have pilots that are in our team. Product team, we've had pilot. We've also have pilots right now, part of our sales team on the Schedaero side and customer success management team. Also, one of our account managers is a helicopter pilot. I know, Vincent, you love helicopter pilots, so
yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities in Avinode.
I love anything that flies, so
okay.
It can be a helicopter, a plane, whatever. If it flies, I'm good to go. So no, that's great that you brought that up, because sometimes somebody may be on a track, for example, to be a professional pilot, and maybe it's going to take them a few years before they meet the requirements for that. But they have the knowledge base with aviation. So it would make a lot of sense for them to look at an opportunity with a company like Avinode. So that's a good point. Genesis, you're under the spotlight. We will continue to do that for a few minutes. And the reason I say that is because I think you represent a lot of the younger generation, so to speak, and I'm sure you're glad to hear me call you younger generation, but represent a younger generation that is very, that's interested in doing something as a possibility in aviation, or doesn't even necessarily know that, but we know everybody that watches this, they have some interest in aviation. But your track, the way you started out with a major that basically didn't have anything to do with aviation per se. And speaking of that, I will digress for just a second and say, if you're a political science major, there is an opportunity to advocate for aviation on the political side for organizations like NBAA, AOPA, EAA, and all the other major aviation alphabets, I like to call them, to work on their policy side and that type of thing, where they spend a lot of time on the Hill, interacting with the Congress for things that, again, advocate for the industry. So there is that opportunity. And it brings to mind to me also a young man that I met a few weeks ago that's starting his pilot training. And when I asked him what his end goal was, he kind of hesitated for just a second. And as it turned out, he's becoming a pilot, but not to become a professional pilot. He just wants to know a lot about it so that when he goes to law school, he wants to study aviation, or he wants to specialize in aviation law. He will at least have the basics about flying and that type of thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I think it goes along with what we're kind of talking about here in regards to how different things can apply to something that can apply to aviation in a way that's can be a great career or a great opportunity and that type of thing. So back to you, Genesis, that I took so long to set this up. Can you just give a little bit of perspective from, in terms of advice? You mentioned it earlier a little bit about redirecting or pivoting, as you put it, and that type of thing. But can you expand on that a little bit and talk about that from your perspective?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think a lot of college students, once they graduate, sometimes they do know what they want and it doesn't turn out to be exactly what they think it would be, right? And others who don't really know. So I would say that any opportunity that they see that has the passion or the strength that fits what they interest to do, they should go for it and try it out. Especially when you go through these different jobs or you pivot, that's when you really see what really actually interests you. Would I have thought that I would be an account executive with Avinode Group? No. Or even, in the acquisitions team selling a flight management scheduling software? No. Or I'd be talking to DOs every other day of the week? No. So I would say that just to have a lot of grit, passion, and strength. And even though maybe that first job you get is not really what you're passionate about, you should continue to look for other opportunities. And in this world, there is a lot. And in this industry as well, just like you said, that is awesome. This lawyer who really wants to be in aviation law and is trying to be a pilot just so he would know more about it, right? So there's a lot of opportunities, and I would say don't give up. Always be positive, and everything will work itself out. And you can look me up on LinkedIn and send me a message, and we can have a Zoom chat. Yeah.
There you go. That's great. So Saskia, I'm going to ask the same from you to give your perspective and what you would share. You've been in the hospitality industry, so to speak, and transitioned to Avinode 11 years ago, and are doing the customer success overview for the entire company worldwide and that type of thing. So in your position, with your experience, what kind of advice would you give?
I share the opinion of Genesis. I mean, don't be afraid to make the wrong decision. You can always change. I would say if you are passionate about aviation, which it sounds like the majority of the listeners are today, otherwise you probably won't be joining this session. Don't think about only the obvious positions, such as pilots and maybe working for an operator or even for a broker. I started off with it, and I'm probably going to end with it. It's like the industry has come a long way. Technology has its presence in this industry. It is really on its mind, and it will allow us to continue to grow as an industry. So when you are looking at jobs in the aviation industry, don't forget about the technology part and how you can make a difference in that.
Yeah. Well, this has really been great. I'm going to ask you, Saskia, if you could just give us a quick final overview, kind of the elevator version of it, about Avinode Group for our viewers.
Sure. I hope we're in a long elevator. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we offer business essentials for operators and brokers in the business aviation industry. So anything that we can offer to make the life of an operator or a broker easier, in the technology space, in the software space, we're there for that. So during the trip phase, from the moment of being able to acquire more customers, so an Uber of private jets, that's technology that we offer. From the moment of having that Tinder for tails that I talked about, having the ability to quote, having the ability to manage your operation, and then also do the checkout, the payment of that trip. Those are things that we have today. And I promise you, we will continue growing because there will continue to be pain points that we look to solve.
Yeah. Well, you guys have NBAA coming up. And as you said, Genesis, you're looking forward to it because you guys go back to your full-size exhibit space. And Saskia, how about you? What are you looking forward to the most with this upcoming convention? You've been going to it for a while.
Yeah, I was like, I'm looking forward to seeing old friends again. Genesis brought it up earlier about having made friends all over the world. Same thing here. It's so nice to be able to see each other. It was really nice reconnecting with people again last year. There were smaller people or a smaller amount of people there, and I'm looking forward to seeing more people this year coming together. So it will be great connecting again, and also talk about what the future holds, because Everyone is curious about what we think is going to happen. What's the future of business aviation?
Well, and I think the future is very bright for aviation and aerospace overall, but in particular business aviation. Business aviation is growing. In fact, it's having trouble keeping up with itself, so to speak, which is a good problem to have. So I think it's very bright. I think it's extremely bright for the newcomers, those who want to come into the industry and are looking for opportunities. You can kind of name what you want to do, and somebody somewhere in the industry is going to have something available for you. So I think that's a neat aspect of it. As we close out, you brought up something, Saskia, that I think really is a major aspect. You do make great friends in this industry, and from a variety of backgrounds in terms of the different aspects of the industry, and they end up being lifelong friends. I mean, and so you do miss when we've been separated from them for a couple of years. You kind of miss that a lot, and so you look for that as much as everything else. I know I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people that I haven't seen in quite a while. I did go to the regional up in White Plains, and where I saw you, as a matter of fact, for the first time in a couple of years, as I say
Exactly.
that. And that was a great experience. It was a microcosm of what we'll experience in another week or so, but it is still a great aspect of it. And I think it's part of what kind of draws you in. And then I think the other part that draws a lot of us in is what Genesis talked about earlier, and that's not knowing what one day to the next is going to be like. And that part is kind of exciting. I come from a broadcast background, so in the news world and everything, you just never know what was going to drop from day to day. So you kind of look forward to that too. So it was great to have both of you on. Saskia de Jong, the director of customer success worldwide for Avinode Group, and Genesis Dela Cruz, and I got the name right. The account executive for Schedaero. And it was really great to have you ladies on, and thank you for sharing all that you did about what you do and what Avinode is. So look forward to seeing you guys in Orlando. In the meantime, take care and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that wraps things up for all things aviation and aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens with the Private Air Media Group. Looking forward to sharing another great show with you next week. In the meantime, everybody take care. Stay safe and have a good one.